Caleb Thornton dropped to his knees in the dirt and reached beneath the wagon. His hands came back red. Not his blood. Not the children's blood. Their parents' blood still warm on the floorboards above. "Come out," he whispered. "I ain't gonna hurt you." A boy's eyes stared back at him from the darkness. Behind the boy, a little girl clutched a drawing book against her chest and did not breathe. That was how it started, with blood and silence and two children who had nobody left. Subscribe to our channel and follow this story to the end. Comment the city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The summer of 1878 pressed down on Texas like a hand trying to smother something. The sun had been merciless for 6 weeks straight. Wells ran low. Creeks turned to mud. Cattle died standing up in fields too dry to bury them proper. Caleb Thornton had stopped counting the days since he last spoke to another human being. 8 years of silence suited him fine. 8 years since he walked away from the Texas Rangers. 8 years since the night everything went wrong in Del Rio. He lived alone on 40 acres at the edge of Copper Creek, breaking wild horses that nobody else could touch. The horses trusted him. People did not. That was the arrangement, and it worked. Until the wagon. He found it 3 miles east of his property line, tilted sideways, where the road bent toward town. Vultures circled above. That was what caught his attention first. Too many vultures for a dead coyote. Caleb pulled his horse to a stop and sat there for a long moment. His hand rested on the rifle across his saddle. Old habits, ranger habits, the kind that never quite left a man's bones. The wagon was a farm wagon, simple, worn. The canvas cover had been pulled down on one side. 2 bodies lay inside, man and woman, husband and wife by the matching bands on their fingers. Shot, both of them, close range. Caleb dismounted slowly. He walked around the wagon, reading the ground the way his captain had taught him years ago. 3 horses, maybe 4. Came from the south, left heading west, took whatever they could carry. Bandits. The hill country had been crawling with them since spring. He was about to turn back to his horse when he heard it. A breath, small, quick, terrified. Caleb froze. His eyes moved to the space beneath the wagon. Dark there, shadowed by the tilted wheel. He crouched down slow, real slow. 2 faces stared back at him. A boy, maybe 11, holding a kitchen knife in both hands like he knew what he meant to do with it. Behind him, pressed against the wagon's underside, a girl. Younger, 7 maybe. Clutching a small drawing book so tight her knuckles had gone white. Neither of them made a sound. "Easy now," Caleb said. His voice came out rough, unused. "I ain't one of them." The boy's knife did not lower. "They killed my ma and pa," the boy said. His voice cracked, but his hands stayed steady. "I'll kill you too if you try anything." "I know they did." Caleb kept his hands open, visible. "I'm sorry for it." "Sorry don't help nothing." "No, it don't." They stayed that way for a long moment. Man and boy, knife between them. The girl had not blinked once, had not moved. She watched Caleb with eyes that had already seen too much. "What's your name?" Caleb asked. "Why do you care?" "Because I'm trying to figure out how to help you." "Nobody helps nobody out here." Caleb exhaled slowly. The boy was right. That was the hard truth of it. Out here, help was a word people used when they wanted something. "My name's Caleb Thornton," he said. "I got a ranch 3 miles west. Got water, got food, got a roof." He paused. "You can't stay under this wagon forever." The boy's jaw tightened. "Maybe we can. Maybe you can. But she can't." The boy's eyes flickered to his sister. Just for a second. Just long enough for Caleb to see the fear crack through. "What's wrong with her?" the boy demanded. "Nothing's wrong with her." But she ain't built for hiding under wagons in this heat. Neither are you. Caleb stood up slowly, keeping his hands where the boy could see them. I'm gonna bury your folks. Proper burial. Proper words. Then I'm taking you to town. There's people there who can help. I told you. I heard what you told me. Caleb's voice gentled. But I'm still gonna do it. You can stab me if you want. But I'm still gonna do it. The boy stared at him for a long time. Then slowly, he lowered the knife. The burial took 2 hours. Caleb dug in soil that fought him every inch. The sun beat down without mercy. Sweat soaked through his shirt and dried and soaked through again. The boy stood at the edge of the grave watching. He had given his name somewhere in the middle of the digging. Samuel. Sam. His sister was Hannah. Hannah had not spoken. Not once. Sam said she had not spoken since the shooting. 3 days now. Maybe 4. They had lost count hiding under the wagon drinking from a canteen their mother had pushed into Sam's hands before she died. You got people anywhere? Caleb asked while he worked. Kin anybody? No, sir. Your folks mention anybody friends family back east? We came from Missouri. Pa said we were starting fresh out here. Sam's voice went hard. Ain't nobody waiting for us nowhere. Caleb nodded slowly. He had expected that answer. Most people who came this far west were running from something, or running toward nothing. When the grave was finished, Caleb stood over it with his hat in his hands. He did not know what to say. He had never been much for words, but the boy and the girl were watching, and their parents deserved something. Lord, he started, stopped, started again. These 2 people worked hard and loved their children. That's more than most folks manage. Take care of them. It was not much, but Sam's shoulders dropped a little when he heard it, like something had finally been set down. Hannah still had not spoken. She stood beside her brother clutching her drawing book staring at the fresh-turned earth. No tears, no sound. Just that hollow stare that made Caleb's chest ache in ways he had forgotten he could feel. Come on, he said quietly. Town's this way. Jund. Copper Creek in summer was dust and heat and the smell of livestock cooking alive in their pens. Caleb rode in with Sam behind him on the horse and Hannah cradled in his arms. She weighed almost nothing, like holding a bird that had forgotten how to fly. People noticed. Of course they noticed. Caleb Thornton had not come to town in 6 months. Now here he was covered in grave dirt carrying 2 children nobody recognized. Whispers started before he reached the sheriff's office. That's the Thornton fellow, the one who lives out by the ridge. What's he doing with those young'uns? Lord have mercy, look at the state of them. Caleb ignored it all. He tied his horse and lifted Hannah down careful as glass. Sam jumped down on his own, his hand finding his sister's shoulder immediately. Protective. Ready. Sheriff Tom Avery stepped out onto the boardwalk. He was 55 now, gray at the temples, but still built like the ranger he used to be. He had ridden with Caleb once, long time ago, before Del Rio. Caleb. Tom's voice was careful. Been a while. Tom. Those your kids? Found them, 3 miles east. Their folks are dead, bandits. Tom's face changed. The careful look turned into something harder. Something that remembered how things were out here. How long ago? 3 days, maybe 4. Kids hid under the wagon. I buried the parents an hour ago. You got names. Samuel and Hannah Whitmore, from Missouri. Tom looked at the children. Sam met his eyes steady. Hannah did not look at anything. They got people? Tom asked. No. Nobody at all. That's what the boy says. Tom exhaled slowly. He rubbed a hand across his jaw the way he always did when he was thinking hard about something he did not want to think about. Caleb, you know what happens now. I know. Judge Holbrook rides through tomorrow. If there ain't no kin, those children get sent east. Orphan train. Sam's hand tightened on Hannah's shoulder. Caleb saw it. He felt something twist in his gut. "There's got to be another way," he said. "There ain't. Single man can't keep children. Territory law. You know that better than most." "I know the law." Caleb's voice dropped low. "I also know the law can bend when it needs to." Tom stared at him for a long moment. Something passed between them. Old memories. Old debts. "What are you thinking?" Tom asked quietly. Caleb did not answer right away. He looked down at Hannah still pressed against his leg. He looked at Sam trying so hard to be brave, it almost broke something inside him. Then he said the words he never imagined he would say. "I'm thinking I need a wife." The Silver Dollar Saloon was not the kind of place where miracles happened. It was the kind of place where men drank to forget and woke up remembering anyway. Sawdust floors, smoke-stained ceiling, a piano that had not been tuned since before the war. Caleb walked in just as the sun was setting. The room was half full. Ranchers, drifters, a few local merchants drowning their sorrows after another day of slow business. They all looked up when Caleb entered. He was not a stranger to them. He was something worse. He was a man who had chosen to stop being one of them. A man who had walked away from everything and everyone. Caleb stopped in the middle of the room. He took off his hat. "I need a wife," he said. "By tomorrow morning." Silence, then laughter. It started in the corner. A man named Grady, who owed half the town money and paid none of it back. He slapped the table so hard his drink spilled. "Lord Almighty, the hermit wants a bride." More laughter. Spreading. Growing. "Thornton, you ain't said 10 words to nobody in 8 years, and now you want a wife." Maybe one of the horses said yes. Better check if she's got all her teeth. The jokes came fast. Cruel. The way they always did in places like this, where men were afraid of their own loneliness and hated anyone who reminded them of it. Caleb stood still. He waited. The laughter began to fade. Not because the jokes stopped being funny, but because Caleb's face had not changed. Not once. He just stood there, hat in his hands, eyes steady, waiting. "There are 2 children," he said when the room quieted enough to hear. "A boy named Sam, a girl named Hannah. I found them 4 days ago hiding under their parents' wagon. Their folks were shot dead by bandits." The laughter died completely now. "The girl don't speak. Not a word since she watched her mama die. The boy is 11 years old, and he held a knife on me for 10 minutes because he thought I was there to finish what the bandits started." Caleb's voice did not rise. It did not need to. "Judge Holbrook rides in tomorrow morning. If I ain't married by then, those children get put on an orphan train and sent to some city back east where nobody knows them and nobody cares." He paused. "I am not asking for love. I am asking for a woman to stand beside me before the judge so those 2 children can have a home." The silence stretched. Grady shifted in his seat, but said nothing. The bartender wiped the same glass over and over, not meeting anyone's eye. Then a voice came from the back of the room. Quiet. Female. "What happened at Del Rio?" Caleb's whole body went still. The voice belonged to a woman sitting alone at a corner table. She had dark auburn hair pulled back simple. Plain dress. Coffee cup in front of her, not whiskey. Her hands were steady on the table, and her eyes were fixed on Caleb like she was reading a book she had not decided to finish yet. Margaret Sullivan. Maggie, some called her. The widow who did mending and laundry over at the boarding house. She had come to town 2 years ago and kept to herself almost as much as Caleb did. "Ma'am?" Caleb's voice was careful now. "I said what happened at Del Rio." Maggie stood up slowly. She was not tall, but she held herself like she was. "I heard the stories. Everybody in this town has heard the stories. You were a Texas Ranger. You were good at it. Then something happened, and you walked away and never looked back." The room had gone completely silent now. If you want me to consider standing beside you tomorrow morning, I need to know what kind of man I'd be standing beside." Caleb's jaw tightened. 8 years. 8 years of silence about that night. 8 years of carrying it alone. "It ain't a pretty story, ma'am." "I didn't ask for pretty. I asked for the truth." He looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "We had information about a gang. Bad men. Real bad. They were holed up in a farmhouse outside Del Rio. Captain sent 6 of us to bring them in." Caleb's voice went flat, distant. "I was point man, first one through the door." The saloon was so quiet you could hear the lamp flames flickering. It wasn't the gang inside. It was a family. A farmer and his wife and their 3 children. The gang had moved on 2 days earlier, left the family tied up, waiting. "Waiting for what?" Maggie asked. "For us." Caleb's hands clenched at his sides. "They knew we were coming. They set a trap. Dynamite rigged to the door. When I opened it..." He stopped, breathed. "2 of my men died. The farmer's wife died. One of the children died. And I..." His voice broke for just a second. "I was the one who opened the door. I was the one who didn't check. I was the one who got people killed." Maggie did not look away. "So you quit," she said. "I walked away. Never put on the badge again. Never will. And you've been punishing yourself ever since." Caleb's head came up. His eyes met hers. "I've been living with it, ma'am. That's all a man can do." Maggie was quiet for a long moment. The whole room was holding its breath. Then she asked the question that changed everything. "That boy, Sam, he flinches, doesn't he? When someone raises a hand too fast, when someone speaks too loud." Caleb frowned. "How do you..." "Because I've seen it before." Maggie's voice was steady, but something underneath it trembled. "I've seen what happens to children who live through things no child should live through." She paused. "My question is this. Can you be gentle with him? Not just kind. Gentle, patient. Can you teach a boy who's afraid of men how to trust one?" The room was absolutely still. Caleb thought about Sam. The way he stood in front of his sister. The way he held that knife, like it was the last thing between him and the whole terrible world. The way his eyes flickered with fear every time Caleb moved too fast. "I don't know," Caleb said honestly. "I've never raised a child. I've never been gentle with anything except horses." "Then learn." "Ma'am, I said learn." Maggie stepped forward. 1 step, 2. She stopped an arm's length from Caleb and looked up at him. "I buried my husband 2 years ago. He was not a good man. I buried what he left me in debt and scandal and a reputation I had to outrun to get here. I swore I would never stand beside another man as long as I lived." Caleb said nothing. He waited. "But those children didn't choose this," Maggie continued. "They didn't ask to lose everything. They didn't ask to be afraid." Her voice steadied. "So here's my offer. I will marry you tomorrow morning. I will stand beside you in front of that judge. I will help you keep those children. And in return, you will learn to be gentle. You will learn to be patient. You will let those children heal at their own pace, and you will not..." Her voice cracked just slightly. "You will not make them afraid of their own home." Caleb looked at her for a long time. This woman he did not know. This woman who had asked him the one question nobody else had thought to ask. "I give you my word," he said quietly. "Your word." "Yes, ma'am. I will be gentle. I will be patient. I will learn whatever I need to learn." He paused. "I can't promise I'll be good at it. But I can promise I'll try. Every day, I'll try." Maggie studied his face, his scars, his crooked nose, his hands that had done hard work for hard years. Then she looked at his eyes, and something in her expression shifted. "Then I'll marry you, Caleb Thornton," she said. "Tomorrow morning, before the judge." Behind them, the saloon exhaled. Nobody laughed this time. That night, Caleb sat on the boarding house porch with Sam and Hannah. The children had been given a room, food, a bath. Hannah still had not spoken. Sam sat on the step below Caleb, staring out at the dark street. "That woman," Sam said finally. "The one who's gonna marry you." "Miss Sullivan. She gonna be like a ma to us?" Caleb considered the question carefully. "I don't know," he said. "That's something you'd have to ask her, and it's something that takes time. Nobody can just become a ma or a pa overnight." Sam was quiet for a moment. "My real ma," he said slowly. "She used to sing to Hannah at night, every night, even when she was tired, even when pa was being difficult." Caleb noted the word, difficult, filed it away. "Hannah won't sleep without singing," Sam continued. "But I don't know the songs. I tried, but—" His voice broke. "I don't know the songs." Caleb's chest tightened. "Maybe Miss Sullivan knows some songs," he said quietly. "Maybe." Sam pulled his knees up to his chest. "You promise you'll take care of us. Really promise." "I promise. Even if it's hard. Especially if it's hard." Sam nodded slowly. Then so quietly Caleb almost missed it, he said, "Okay." Above them in the window of her room, Hannah sat in the dark, clutching her drawing book. She had not spoken in 4 days, but she had started a new drawing. It showed a house, simple, small. And in front of the house, 4 figures stood together. She did not know their names yet, but she was drawing them anyway. The morning came too fast. Maggie stood in her small room at the boarding house, staring at the plain blue dress laid out on the bed. It was the nicest thing she owned. She had worn it exactly twice, once to bury her husband, once to leave Boston forever. Now she would wear it to marry a stranger. Her hands shook as she reached for it. "You don't have to do this." She whispered the words to herself, to the woman in the small mirror on the wall. The woman stared back with tired eyes and a jaw set hard against doubt. You could walk away. Nobody would blame you. But she knew that was a lie. She would blame herself. For the rest of her life, she would see those 2 children standing in the street being loaded onto a train headed east to a life that would swallow them whole. A knock came at the door. Maggie's heart jumped. She crossed the room and opened it. Sam stood in the hallway, alone. He was wearing a borrowed shirt that hung too big on his narrow shoulders. His hair had been combed, but it already stuck up in the back. He looked like exactly what he was. A boy trying to be a man before he was ready. "Ma'am," he said. His voice was stiff, formal. "Sam, is something wrong? Where's Hannah?" "She's still sleeping." He shifted his weight. His hands clenched at his sides. "I wanted to talk to you, before." Maggie stepped back and opened the door wider. "Come in." Sam hesitated. Then he walked past her into the room. He stopped in the middle and turned around, and his eyes were hard in a way that made Maggie's chest ache. "Why are you doing this?" he demanded. "Doing what?" "Marrying him. Marrying us." The words came out sharp, bitter. "You don't know us. You don't owe us nothing. So why?" Maggie studied him for a long moment. This boy who had watched his parents die. This boy who had held a knife against the world and dared it to come closer. "Sit down, Sam." "I don't want to sit down." "I know. Sit down anyway." Something in her voice made him obey. He sank onto the edge of the bed, his shoulders tight, his jaw clenched. Maggie pulled the single chair in the room closer and sat facing him. "You want to know why I'm doing this," she said. "I'll tell you, but you're not going to like the answer. Try me. I'm doing it because I'm tired of running." Sam frowned. "Running from what?" From grief, from shame, from a husband who gambled away everything we had and then put a bullet in his own head rather than face what he'd done. Maggie's voice did not waver. I ran all the way from Boston to this little town in the middle of nowhere, and I told myself I was starting over. But I wasn't. I was just hiding. Sam said nothing, but his eyes changed, just slightly. Just enough. Then yesterday, I watched a man walk into a saloon full of people who wanted to laugh at him, and he stood there anyway. He stood there and told the truth about 2 children who needed help. Maggie leaned forward. That took courage. The kind of courage I haven't had in a long time. So you're doing this for yourself, Sam said. Not for us. I'm doing it for all of us. Maggie held his gaze. You're not the only one who needs a second chance, Sam. Sometimes grown-ups need them too. The room was quiet for a long moment. Then Sam asked the question that had been burning in him since the night before. My pa? He said slowly. My real pa. He used to hit my ma sometimes, when he got angry. His voice dropped. He never hit me or Hannah, but I saw him hit her, more than once. Maggie felt her throat tighten. That man yesterday, Mr. Thornton. Sam's hands twisted in his lap. Is he going to be like that? No. The word came out fierce. Certain. No, Sam. He is not going to be like that. How do you know? Because I asked him, and because I've learned to read men better than I used to. Maggie reached out slowly and put her hand over Sam's. I can't promise you everything is going to be perfect. I can't promise we won't make mistakes. But I can promise you this: nobody in that house is going to hurt you. Nobody is going to hurt Hannah. And if anyone tries, they'll have to go through me first. Sam looked at her hand on his. He did not pull away. You mean that? He asked quietly. I mean it. He was silent for a long time. Then he nodded once. Quick. Decisive. Okay, he said. Okay. He stood up and walked to the door. Stopped with his hand on the frame. Turned back. Ma'am? Yes. That dress is nice. You should wear it. Then he was gone. Maggie sat alone in the quiet room. She looked at the blue dress on the bed. She put it on. The wedding took place at 9 o'clock in the small white church that served as courthouse when Judge Holbrook rode through. The building was plain. Wooden pews worn smooth by years of use. A single window letting in the brutal summer light. Caleb stood at the front, next to the judge's narrow table. He had cleaned up as best he could, shaved, combed his hair, borrowed a jacket from the general store that fit his shoulders, but hung too long in the arms. He looked uncomfortable, out of place, like a wild horse standing in a stall too small for him. Tom Avery stood to one side, serving as witness. A handful of townspeople had gathered in the back pews. Not many, but more than Caleb had expected. Then the door opened and Maggie walked in. She wore the blue dress, simple, modest. Her auburn hair was pulled back and a few strands had already escaped to frame her face. She was not beautiful in the way magazines showed. She was something better. She was real. Hannah walked beside her, clutching her drawing book. Sam followed a step behind his borrowed shirt, tucked in tight, his face serious. They walked down the short aisle together. When Maggie reached Caleb, she stopped, looked up at him. You ready for this? She asked quietly. No, ma'am. Are you? No. Good. Then we're even. Something that might have been a smile flickered across her face. Judge Holbrook cleared his throat. He was 62 years old with white hair and eyes that had seen enough to stop being surprised by anything. He had known Caleb as a young ranger, eager and certain. He had heard about Del Rio. He had watched the man disappear into the hills and assumed he would never see him again. Now, here Caleb was asking for something the judge had never expected. We'll keep this short, the judge said. I've got 3 more stops before dark. He opened his ledger. Caleb Thornton, Margaret Sullivan, you're both here of your own free will. Yes, sir, Caleb said. Yes, Maggie said. And you understand the obligations of marriage under territorial law? We do. The judge nodded. He looked at the children standing beside Maggie. Hannah pressed closer to her, and the movement was so small, so instinctive that Maggie almost missed it. She did not miss it. Before I proceed, the judge said, I need to ask about the children. Caleb's jaw tightened. What about them? Samuel and Hannah Whitmore, orphaned 4 days ago, no living relatives. The judge's voice was formal, but his eyes were not unkind. Mr. Thornton, you're asking for custody of these children. I need to know you understand what that means. I understand. Do you? Because raising children isn't like breaking horses. You can't just feed them and give them shelter and expect them to thrive. I know that. They've been through something terrible, something that leaves marks you can't see. The judge looked at Hannah, still silent, still clutching her book. That little girl hasn't spoken a word in 4 days. You prepared for that? Caleb swallowed. No, sir. I'm not prepared for any of it. But I'm going to learn. How? By trying. Every day. By being patient. By being... He stopped. The word Maggie had used came back to him. By being gentle. The judge studied him for a long moment. Then he turned to Maggie. And you, Mrs. Sullivan, you're willing to take on this responsibility. I am. Why? You don't know this man. You don't know these children. Maggie looked at Hannah, at the way the girl's small hand had found the edge of her skirt and was holding on tight. Because somebody has to, she said simply, and I'm here. The judge was quiet. Then he nodded. Very well, join hands. Caleb reached out. His hand was rough, calloused. It swallowed Maggie's smaller one completely. Do you, Caleb Thornton, take this woman to be your lawful wife? I do. His voice was steady, but his hand trembled. Do you, Margaret Sullivan, take this man to be your lawful husband? I do. By the power vested in me by the territory of Texas, I pronounce you husband and wife. The judge stamped the ledger. Custody of Samuel and Hannah Whitmore is hereby granted to Caleb and Margaret Thornton. It was done. Sam's shoulders dropped. Hannah pressed closer to Maggie's side, and somewhere in the back of the church, a man stood up and walked out without a word. Victor Crane. Nobody noticed him leave. Nobody except Tom Avery, who watched the banker disappear through the door with eyes that had learned long ago to notice everything. Outside the church, the summer heat hit them like a wall. Caleb helped Maggie and the children into the wagon he had borrowed from the livery stable. It was not much. Worn wood, a canvas cover to block the worst of the sun, 2 horses that had seen better days. It's 3 miles, Caleb said. Road gets rough near the end. I've survived worse than rough roads, Maggie replied. They started moving. Sam sat in the back with Hannah, both of them tucked under the canvas shade. Hannah had her drawing book open, but she was not drawing. She was watching, always watching. The town fell away behind them. The road climbed into the hills, and the only sounds were hoofbeats and wheels, and the endless drone of cicadas in the brush. After a mile, Sam spoke. Mr. Thornton. You can call me Caleb. Mr. Thornton. Sam's voice was stubborn. Those bandits, the ones who killed my folks. You used to be a ranger. You must have hunted men like that. Caleb's hands tightened on the reins. I did. Are they gonna come back? I don't know. But they might. They might. Sam was quiet for a moment. Then, will you teach me to shoot? Maggie turned sharply. Sam! He asked me a question, Caleb said calmly. Let me answer it. He looked over his shoulder at the boy. I'll teach you to shoot, when you're ready. But there's something you need to learn first. What? That a gun doesn't make you safe. Knowing when not to use it does. Sam frowned. That don't make sense. It will, eventually. The road climbed higher. The air grew a little cooler, though not much. The ranch appeared between the hills like something that had grown there naturally. Low buildings, weathered wood. A corral where 3 horses stood in the shade watching the wagon approach. Caleb pulled the horses to a stop. Here we are, he said. Maggie looked at the house. It was simple, plain. The porch needed mending. The windows needed washing. The whole place looked like it had been lived in by a man who had stopped caring about living. It needs work, Caleb said. He sounded almost defensive. Everything does, Maggie replied. She climbed down from the wagon before he could offer to help. Come on, children. Let's see our new home. Sam jumped down. Hannah did not move. She sat in the back of the wagon, her drawing book clutched against her chest, staring at the house with wide eyes. Hannah? Sam reached for her. Come on. It's okay. Hannah shook her head. Quick, frightened. Maggie climbed back into the wagon. She knelt down in front of the little girl, not touching her, just close. Hannah, can you look at me? Hannah's eyes shifted, met hers. I know you're scared, Maggie said softly. I know this is all new and strange and nothing feels right. But I need you to trust me for just a little while. Can you do that? Just for today? Hannah's grip on the book loosened. Just a little. We're going to go inside together. You and me and Sam. And if you don't like it, if you want to leave, you can tell me. Okay. Hannah's lips parted. For a moment, Maggie thought she might speak. But instead, the girl reached out and took Maggie's hand. It was enough. They walked into the house together. Inside, the air was hot and still. Dust danced in the light from the windows. The main room held a table, a few chairs, a fireplace cold in the summer heat. Everything was functional. Nothing was comfortable. Maggie ran her finger along the table. It came away gray. When did you last clean this place? She asked. Define clean, Caleb said. That's what I thought. She turned to Sam. Find me a broom. There should be one somewhere. Yes, ma'am. And stop calling me ma'am. My name is Maggie. Sam hesitated. The words sat between them, heavy with meaning. Neither of them was ready to address. Yes, ma'am, he said again. Then he went to find the broom. The afternoon passed in work. Maggie swept. She scrubbed. She opened windows and let air move through rooms that had forgotten what fresh felt like. Sam helped without being asked, carrying water, beating dust from blankets, doing whatever needed doing with a focus that made Maggie's heart ache. Hannah sat in a corner of the main room drawing. She had not let go of her book since they arrived. But she was watching, always watching. Her eyes followed Maggie everywhere she went. Caleb worked outside, tending the horses, checking fences, doing the 1,000 small tasks that kept a ranch alive. Every now and then, he came to the door to check on them. He never stayed long. He seemed uncertain how to exist in the same space as other people. At dusk, Maggie called everyone to the table. She had found supplies in the small kitchen. Beans, dried meat, coffee, flour that was mostly still good. She had made something that resembled a meal. They sat in silence, 4 strangers who were now legally a family. Caleb ate with his head down. Sam ate fast, like he was afraid the food might disappear. Hannah did not eat at all. You need to eat something, Maggie said gently. Hannah shook her head. Just a little, for me. Hannah looked at her. Then slowly she picked up a piece of bread and took one small bite. It was something. After dinner, Sam helped clear the dishes. Caleb sat on the porch watching the sun go down. Hannah stayed at the table drawing. Maggie found herself standing in the doorway, caught between the 2 worlds. Inside and outside. Past and future. She chose inside. She walked to the table and sat down across from Hannah. The girl did not look up, but her pencil moved faster, drawing something new. "Can I see?" Maggie asked. Hannah's hand stopped moving. She looked at Maggie with those two old eyes. Then she turned the book around and pushed it across the table. The drawing showed 4 figures standing in front of a house. 2 tall, 2 small. They were holding hands. Maggie's throat tightened. "Is that us?" she asked softly. Hannah nodded. "It's beautiful, Hannah. It's the most beautiful thing I've seen in a long time." Something changed in the girl's face, a softening. A tiny crack in the wall she had built around herself. She pulled the book back and started drawing again. That night, Caleb gave up his bedroom for Maggie and the children. He would sleep in the main room, he said, on the floor. He had done it before. Maggie did not argue. There would be time to sort out arrangements later. Right now, all that mattered was getting through this first night. She tucked Hannah into the bed. Sam insisted on sleeping on the floor beside his sister. Maggie did not fight him. She understood the need to protect. She was about to blow out the lamp when Hannah grabbed her sleeve. "What is it?" Maggie asked. Hannah's eyes were wide, frightened. "She can't sleep without singing," Sam said from the floor. His voice was small, ashamed. "Ma used to sing to her every night. I tried, but I don't know the songs." Maggie looked at Hannah, at this silent girl who had lost everything. "I know some songs," Maggie said softly. "Would you like me to try?" Hannah nodded, once, desperate. Maggie sat on the edge of the bed. She took a breath, and she began to sing. It was an old song, a lullaby her own mother had sung long ago in a house that no longer existed. The words came back slowly rusty from years of not being used, but they came. Hannah's eyes grew heavy. Her grip on Maggie's sleeve loosened. Her breathing slowed. By the time the song ended, she was asleep. Sam was watching from the floor. His eyes shone in the lamplight. "Thank you," he whispered. "Get some sleep, Sam." "Yes, ma'am. Maggie." She smiled. It was the first real smile she had allowed herself in 2 years. Out in the main room, Caleb sat in a chair by the cold fireplace. He was not sleeping. He was listening. When Maggie came out, he stood up quickly, awkwardly. "They asleep?" he asked. "Hannah is. Sam's trying." Caleb nodded. He shifted his weight. His hands hung at his sides like he did not know what to do with them. "I heard you singing," he said. "I'm sorry if it bothered." It didn't. He cut her off, then softer. "It was nice. I haven't heard singing in this house since—" He stopped, shook his head. "A long time." Maggie studied him. This rough, quiet man who had walked into a saloon and begged for a miracle. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "You can ask." "Earlier, at the wedding, that man who left, the one in the expensive coat, who was he?" Caleb's expression darkened. "Victor Crane. He owns the bank in town. Owns a lot of other things too." "Why did he come?" "I don't know. But you have an idea." Caleb was quiet for a moment. Then he walked to the window and looked out at the dark. "Crane's been wanting this land for 3 years. Made me offers. I turned them down. He doesn't like being turned down." "You think he's going to cause trouble?" "I think trouble's coming one way or another. It always does." Caleb turned back to face her. "But not tonight. Tonight we rest." Maggie nodded. She started toward the bedroom, then stopped. "Caleb, yeah. Were you gentle today with them?" He blinked. The question caught him off guard. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I think so. I tried." Maggie smiled. "Then that's enough. For today." She went to bed. Caleb stood alone in the dark. For the first time in 8 years, he did not feel completely alone. And somewhere in Copper Creek, Victor Crane, sat in his office, staring at a map of the territory, with Caleb Thornton's 40 acres marked in red. "He got married," his assistant said. "Took in those orphans." "I know. That changes things." "No." Crane smiled. It did not reach his eyes. "It just makes things more interesting." He reached for his pen and began to write. The letter would reach the territorial office by week's end. And then the real trouble would begin. 2 weeks passed, like water finding its way through stone. Slow. Persistent. Changing everything it touched. Maggie learned the rhythm of the ranch. She learned when Caleb woke, which was before dawn. She learned when the horses needed feeding, which was twice daily. She learned the particular silence of a man who had forgotten how to share space with others. Sam followed Caleb everywhere, not speaking much, just watching, learning, waiting for something he could not name. Hannah still did not speak, but she drew. Every day, pages and pages of drawings that told stories her voice could not. On the 15th morning, everything changed. Caleb was working with a new horse in the corral. A gray mare, half wild, brought down from the hills 3 days prior. She fought the rope. She kicked at the fence. She wanted nothing to do with humans. Sam stood at the rail watching. "Why don't you just break her?" he asked. Caleb did not look away from the mare. "Break her how?" "I don't know. Tie her down. Make her listen." "That what you think breaking means?" Sam hesitated. "Ain't it?" Caleb let out more rope, giving the mare room to move. She circled, snorted, watched him with wild eyes. "You can break a horse's spirit," Caleb said slowly. "Force her to obey. She'll do what you want, but she'll hate you for it. Every day, forever." He took a step toward the mare, just one. "Or you can earn her trust. Takes longer, harder work. But when she comes to you because she wants to, not because she's afraid." He paused. "That's something else entirely." Sam was quiet for a long moment. "Is that what you're doing with us?" he asked. "Earning our trust." Caleb finally looked at him. "I'm trying." "It's working." Sam's voice was barely above a whisper. "A little." Something shifted in Caleb's chest. Something that had been locked away for 8 years. "Sam," he said, "you want to come in here? Help me with her." The boy's eyes went wide. "Really? Really? But you move slow. You speak soft. And if she spooks you, get behind me." "Understood." Sam was already climbing the fence. Inside the house, Maggie stood at the window watching. Hannah stood beside her drawing book pressed against her chest. "Look at them," Maggie said softly. "Look at your brother." Hannah watched. Sam was in the corral now, standing close to Caleb, his whole body tense with excitement and fear. Caleb was talking to him, gesturing toward the mare, showing him how to hold out his hand. The mare took a step forward, then another. She sniffed Sam's outstretched fingers. Sam laughed. The sound carried across the yard, bright and surprised, like something breaking free. Maggie's hand found Hannah's shoulder. "He's going to be okay," she said. "We all are." Hannah looked up at her, those silent eyes that saw everything. Then she turned back to her book and started drawing. The picture showed a boy and a horse and a man standing together. 3 days later, Victor Crane came to the ranch. Maggie saw the dust cloud first, a single rider approaching fast from the direction of town. She set down the shirt she was mending and walked to the porch. Caleb emerged from the barn, his expression hardening as he recognized the rider. "Take the children inside," he said. "Who is it?" "Crane." Maggie did not argue. She gathered Sam and Hannah and ushered them through the door. But she did not go far. She stood just inside, watching through the window. Crane dismounted with the easy confidence of a man who owned everything he could see. His suit was expensive, his boots polished, his smile the kind that never reached his eyes. "Thornton." He removed his hat. "Lovely place you have here." "State your business, Crane." "Straight to the point. I've always appreciated that about you." Crane reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded paper. "I wanted to deliver this personally. Seemed only fair." Caleb took the paper, unfolded it, read. His face went pale. "What is this?" he demanded. "That is an order from the Territorial Land Office. Seems there's a question about your deed. Something about boundaries, survey errors." Crane's smile widened. "These things happen. This land has been mine for 8 years. You know that. I know what the records say, and the records say there's a discrepancy that needs to be resolved." Crane spread his hands. "Until then, all transactions involving this property are frozen, including, I'm afraid, any custody arrangements that depend on you being a legal property owner." Caleb's hands shook, not with fear, with rage. "You did this," he said. "You paid someone." "Careful, Thornton. That sounds like an accusation." Crane's voice went cold. "I'm simply doing my civic duty, bringing potential irregularities to the attention of the proper authorities." "Get off my land." "For now." Crane mounted his horse. "But I'd start looking for other options if I were you. A man with no land can't keep children. Territory law." He tipped his hat. "Give my regards to your lovely wife." He rode away. Caleb stood frozen, staring at the paper in his hands. Maggie came out onto the porch. "What does it say?" "He's trying to take the land." Caleb's voice was hollow. "If he succeeds, we lose everything. The ranch, the children, all of it. He can't do that. He's got money, he's got connections. He can do whatever he wants." "No." Maggie stepped in front of him, forcing him to meet her eyes. "No. We didn't come this far to let one man destroy everything. There has to be something we can do." "Like what?" "I don't know yet, but we'll figure it out." She took the paper from his hands. "Together." Sam appeared in the doorway. His face was white. "I heard," he said. "He's trying to take us away." Caleb looked at the boy, at the fear in his eyes. The same fear he had seen that first day under the wagon. Something hardened inside him. "Nobody," Caleb said slowly, "is taking you anywhere. I promise." "How can you promise that?" "Because I'm not the same man I was 8 years ago." Caleb crouched down until he was at Sam's level. "I ran away once. From everything. I told myself I was protecting people by staying away. But that was a lie. I was just scared." Sam swallowed. "And now? Now I've got something worth fighting for." Caleb put his hand on Sam's shoulder. "I've got you. And Hannah. And Maggie. And I will not let anyone take that away. Do you understand?" Sam's chin trembled, but he nodded. "Good. Now go check on your sister. She's probably worried." Sam ran inside. Maggie watched him go. Then she turned back to Caleb. "You meant that," she said. "Every word." "I did." "Then we need a plan." "I know someone." Caleb's jaw tightened. "Someone who might be able to help, but I'll have to go to town, tonight." "Who?" "Tom Avery, the sheriff." Caleb's eyes went distant. "We rode together before Del Rio. He owes me, and more important, he's honest. One of the few men in this territory who can't be bought." "Then go. I'll hold things here." Caleb hesitated. "You sure?" "I survived Boston. I survived a husband who destroyed everything and left me with nothing. I can survive one night alone." Something that might have been admiration flickered in Caleb's eyes. "Lock the doors," he said. "Keep my rifle by the bed. Don't open for anyone you don't recognize." "I know how to protect my family, Caleb." My family. The words hung between them. Neither had used them before. Not like that. "I'll be back by morning," Caleb said. He saddled his horse and rode into the gathering dark. The night passed slow. Maggie sat in the main room with the rifle across her knees. Sam slept fitfully in the bedroom. Hannah lay awake, her eyes catching the lamplight every time Maggie checked on them. Around midnight, Hannah climbed out of bed and padded into the main room. Maggie looked up. "Can't sleep." Hannah shook her head. She crossed the room and sat down on the floor beside Maggie's chair. Close, seeking warmth. "I know you're scared," Maggie said softly. "I'm scared too. But scared doesn't mean we give up. It just means we hold on tighter." Hannah looked up at her, those eyes that had seen too much. Then she did something she had never done before. She leaned against Maggie's leg and closed her eyes. Maggie's hand found the girl's hair, stroked it gently, the way she had stroked her own son's hair before the fever took him. The memory hit her like a fist to the chest. She had buried Thomas in the spring, 5 years old, gone in 3 days. The doctor said there was nothing anyone could have done. She had not let herself think about him since leaving Boston. Had not let herself remember the weight of him in her arms, the sound of his laugh, the way he used to grab her finger when he was frightened. Now, with Hannah pressed against her, it all came flooding back. Maggie did not cry. She had cried enough. Instead, she held on to this silent girl who needed her, and she made a promise. To Thomas, to Hannah, to herself. Never again. She would never lose another child. Caleb reached town just before midnight. The streets were empty. The saloon was dark. Only a single light burned in the sheriff's office. He tied his horse and pushed through the door. Tom Avery sat at his desk, a bottle of whiskey in front of him, half empty. He looked up when Caleb entered, and his eyes were heavy with exhaustion. "Figured you'd come," Tom said. "Sit down." Caleb sat. "You know why I'm here." "Crane's letter. Yeah, I know." Tom poured 2 glasses, pushed one toward Caleb. "He's been planning this for months, maybe years." "Can he do it? Can he actually take my land? Legally?" Tom shrugged. "Maybe. He's got people in the territorial office, people who owe him. If they rule in his favor, then I lose everything. You lose the land. The custody case gets reopened. Those children get sent east." Tom's voice was flat, tired. "That's how it works." Caleb's hands clenched around the glass. "There has to be another way." "There is." Tom leaned forward. "But you're not going to like it." "Tell me." "Crane's not clean. Nobody that rich is clean. He's been buying up land all over the territory, pushing out small ranchers. Some of them disappeared. Some of them died under circumstances that never got properly investigated." Tom's eyes met Caleb's. "I've been building a case. Slowly, carefully, trying to find something solid enough to bring to the territorial marshal. And I'm close, but I need more time. Weeks maybe, a month." "I don't have a month." "I know." Tom drained his glass. "That's why I'm telling you this, because there might be another option." "What?" "Crane's got papers, records, things he keeps in a safe in his office at the bank." Tom's voice dropped. "Things that could destroy him, if someone could get to them." Caleb stared at him. "You're asking me to break into the bank?" "I'm not asking you anything. I'm telling you what I know." Tom stood up and walked to the window. "What you do with that information is your business. If I get caught, you'll hang, breaking and entering, theft. They'll throw everything at you." Tom turned back. "But if you get those papers, if you bring them to me, I can take Crane down. All of it. The land schemes, the intimidation, everything." Caleb sat in silence for a long moment. He thought about Maggie, about Sam, about Hannah. He thought about the promise he had made. "Where's the safe?" he asked. Tom told him. Caleb rode back before dawn. Maggie met him at the door, rifle still in her hands, eyes sharp with worry. "Well," she demanded. "I've got a plan," Caleb said, "but you're not going to like it." He told her everything, the papers, the safe, the risk. When he finished, Maggie was quiet for a long time. "When?" she finally asked. "Tomorrow night. While Crane's at the town council meeting, Tom checked. He'll be there until at least 10. And if something goes wrong, then you take the children and run. Don't stop until you reach Austin. Find a lawyer. Tell him everything. I'm not running, Maggie said fiercely. You will if you have to. For them. Caleb stepped closer. Promise me that if this goes wrong, you'll protect them, no matter what. Maggie's eyes burned. I promise. Good. He walked past her into the house. Sam stood in the hallway, his face pale. I heard, the boy said. You're going to break into the bank. Caleb stopped. You were supposed to be asleep. I heard, Sam's voice cracked. You could die. I'm not going to die. You don't know that. No, I don't. Caleb knelt down. But I know that sometimes a man has to take risks for the people he loves. That's what being a family means. You fight for each other, even when it's hard, even when it's dangerous. Sam's eyes filled with tears. The first tears Caleb had seen from him. I don't want you to go, Sam whispered. I know. I just got you. I don't want to lose another paw. The word hit Caleb like a bullet to the chest. Paw. Sam had never called him that before. Caleb pulled the boy into his arms and held him tight. You're not going to lose me, he said, his voice rough. I promise. Whatever happens tomorrow, I'm coming back. To you. To Hannah. To Maggie. This is my family now, and I will not let it go. Sam clung to him, shaking. When they finally pulled apart, Sam wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. You better keep that promise, he said. I will. Swear it. I swear it. Sam nodded. Then he turned and walked back to the bedroom, his shoulders a little straighter than before. Maggie stood in the doorway watching. He called you Pa, she said quietly. I know. That means something. I know that too. They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of everything pressing down. Then Maggie crossed the distance between them and put her hand on his arm. Come back, she said. Whatever you have to do, whatever it takes, you come back to us. Do you understand? Caleb looked at her. This woman who had married a stranger to save children she had never met. This woman who stood guard with a rifle through the night. This woman who had lost everything once and refused to lose anything again. I understand, he said. Good. She did not move away. Neither did he. The space between them grew smaller, charged with something neither of them had expected. Then Hannah appeared in the hallway. She was holding her drawing book. Her eyes moved from Caleb to Maggie and back again. She walked forward, slowly, deliberately. She stopped in front of Caleb and held out the book. He took it, looked at the page she had opened. The drawing showed a family, 4 figures, standing in front of a house, holding hands. But this time there were words, scratched in a child's uncertain handwriting at the bottom of the page. 3 words. Don't leave us. Caleb's throat closed. He knelt down until he was at Hannah's level. Hannah, he said softly. Did you write this? She nodded. Can you say it? Can you say it out loud? The girl's lips trembled. Her whole body shook with the effort of trying to break through the wall she had built around herself. Maggie knelt beside her, took her hand. It's okay, she whispered. Take your time. We're right here. Hannah opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again, and then for the first time in 3 weeks, she spoke. Please, she whispered. Don't leave. Caleb pulled her into his arms. Hannah's small body shook with sobs she had been holding back since the day her parents died. Everything came out at once. The fear, the grief, the desperate hope that maybe this time things would be different. Sam appeared in the hallway. He saw his sister crying in Caleb's arms, and his face crumpled. Maggie opened her arms and he ran into them. The 4 of them held each other in the middle of that dusty cabin, bound together by something stronger than law or blood. By choice. By love. By the fierce determination to survive. When they finally pulled apart, Caleb looked at each of them. His wife, his son, his daughter. "I'm coming back," he said. "No matter what, I'm coming back." He meant it. God help anyone who tried to stop him. The night Caleb rode into town felt different from any other. The air hung thick and still, no wind, no relief from the heat that had baked the territory for weeks. The kind of night where things happened that could not be taken back. He left his horse tied behind the livery stable far from the main street. Moved through the shadows the way he had learned during his ranger years. Quiet. Careful. Invisible. The bank sat at the end of Main Street. 2 stories. Brick and mortar. A sign that read, "Copper Creek Savings and Trust," in gold letters that caught the moonlight. Caleb circled the building twice. Checked the windows. Checked the doors. Found what Tom had told him he would find. A back entrance with a lock that had not been changed in 15 years. He pulled out the pick Tom had given him and went to work. The lock clicked open in under a minute. Old skills, ranger skills, the kind that never quite left. He slipped inside. The bank was dark, silent. His boots made no sound on the wooden floor. He moved through the main room past the teller windows toward the office in the back. Crane's office. The door was unlocked. Arrogant. Crane did not expect anyone to challenge him in his own territory. Caleb stepped inside and closed the door behind him. The safe was exactly where Tom said it would be. Behind the desk, built into the wall. A heavy iron door with a combination lock. Caleb knelt in front of it. Tom had given him the combination too, gotten it from a clerk who owed him a favor. 3 numbers. Right, left, right. The first tumbler clicked. The second. The third. The safe swung open. Inside were stacks of papers, ledgers, letters, maps with property lines drawn in red ink. Everything Crane had used to steal land from honest people. Everything Caleb needed to destroy him. He reached for the papers. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." Caleb froze. The voice came from behind him. Calm. Amused. The voice of a man who had been waiting. He turned slowly. Victor Crane stood in the doorway. He was not alone. 2 men flanked him. Big men. Armed men. The kind who did things for money and did not ask questions. "Did you really think I wouldn't know?" Crane stepped into the room. "Tom Avery is a good man, but he talks too much when he drinks. And he drinks quite a lot these days." Caleb's hand moved toward his gun. "I wouldn't," Crane said. "My men are faster than you. Trust me." Caleb stopped. His jaw tightened. "What do you want, Crane?" "What I've always wanted. Your land, your silence, your complete disappearance from this territory." Crane smiled. "But now you've given me something even better. Breaking and entering. Attempted theft. I'll have the sheriff arrest you by morning. You'll hang within the week." "Tom won't arrest me." "Tom won't have a choice. I have witnesses. I have evidence. And I have enough influence in this territory to make sure the judge sees things my way." Crane leaned closer. "Face it, Thornton. You lost. The moment you walked through that door, you lost." Caleb's mind raced. 2 armed men. 1 way out. No weapon in hand. He had faced worse odds, but not with so much at stake. "Those children," Crane continued, "the orphans you've been playing house with, they'll be on the first train east by the end of the month. And your wife," he chuckled, "well, perhaps she'll find comfort elsewhere. Some women do." Something snapped inside Caleb. He moved. Not toward Crane. Toward the window behind the desk. He grabbed the stack of papers from the safe and threw himself backward, crashing through the glass, hitting the ground in a roll, and coming up running. Gunshots exploded behind him. 1 bullet clipped his shoulder. He barely felt it. He ran. Through the alley, across the back lot, toward the livery stable where his horse waited. More shots, shouts, the sound of men giving chase. Caleb reached his horse, swung into the saddle, and kicked hard. The animal bolted into the darkness. Behind him, Copper Creek erupted in chaos. He rode without stopping until he reached the ranch. Maggie was waiting on the porch with the rifle. She saw the blood on his shoulder, and her face went white. What happened? Crane was waiting. Caleb dismounted, clutching the papers against his chest. It was a trap. You're hurt. It's nothing. It's not nothing. She grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the door. Get inside, now. Sam appeared in the doorway. His eyes went wide when he saw the blood. Is he? He's fine, Maggie said firmly. Get me clean water and bandages, now. Sam ran. Inside, Maggie sat Caleb down and examined the wound. The bullet had grazed him, deep enough to bleed, shallow enough to heal. She cleaned it with whiskey, ignoring his hiss of pain, and wrapped it tight. You got the papers? She asked while she worked. I got them. And Crane? He knows. He's coming. Maggie's hands stilled. When? Soon. Maybe tonight. Maybe tomorrow. Caleb grabbed her wrist. You need to take the children and go. Right now. Don't stop until... I told you once, I'm not running. Maggie? No. Her voice cut like a blade. We fight. Together. That's what family does. He'll have men. Guns. I can't protect all of you and fight them at the same time. Then teach me to fight. Caleb stared at her. This woman who had surprised him every single day since he met her. You're serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. Before he could answer, Hannah appeared in the doorway. She was holding her drawing book against her chest. Her eyes moved from Caleb's bandaged shoulder to Maggie's determined face. Are the bad men coming? She asked. Her voice was small, rusty, but it was there. Maggie turned to her. Yes, sweetheart. The bad men might come. Like the ones who hurt Mama and Papa. Maggie's heart cracked. Different bad men, but the same kind of bad. Hannah was quiet for a moment. Then she walked forward and stood in front of Caleb. Don't let them take us, she said. Please. Caleb reached out and cupped her small face in his rough hands. I won't, he said. I promise. You promised before. And I kept that promise. I came back. He held her gaze. I will always come back, Hannah. Always. She studied his face, looking for the lie, looking for the crack. She found neither. Okay, she whispered. I believe you. She turned and walked back to the bedroom, her drawing book clutched tight. Sam stood in the hallway watching. His fists were clenched at his sides. I can fight, he said. I'm old enough. No, Caleb said. I said no. Caleb's voice was firm. Your job is to protect your sister. If things go bad, you take her and you run. Straight to town. Find Sheriff Avery. Tell him everything. But, Sam. Caleb stood up, wincing at the pain in his shoulder. This is not negotiable. You are not a soldier. You are a boy, my boy, and I will not let you die for something I started. Sam's eyes filled with angry tears. I hate this. I know. I hate being helpless. You're not helpless. You're brave. There's a difference. Caleb put his hand on Sam's shoulder. Being brave doesn't mean fighting every battle. It means knowing which battles to fight. And this one isn't yours. Sam stood rigid for a long moment. Then his shoulders dropped. If something happens to you, he said quietly, I'm going to be so angry. Despite everything, Caleb almost smiled. Good. Use that anger. It'll keep you moving. The night stretched on. Caleb sat by the window with his rifle watching the road. Maggie sat across from him with the shotgun she had found in the barn. Neither of them slept. Around 3 a.m, Maggie spoke. Tell me about Del Rio. Caleb's hands tightened on the rifle. You already know about Del Rio. I know the facts. I don't know what it did to you. He was quiet for a long time, The darkness pressed in around them. "I was good at my job," he said finally. "Too good, maybe. I never questioned orders, never hesitated. I was the first one through every door, the first one into every fight." He paused. "I thought that made me brave. Turns out it just made me reckless." And that night I went through a door without checking, without thinking, and people died because of it." His voice roughened. "A woman, a child, 2 of my own men. All because I was so sure I knew what I was doing. It wasn't your fault. It was exactly my fault." "No." Maggie leaned forward. "It was a trap. Set by evil men. You didn't plant that dynamite. You didn't tie up that family. You walked into something no one could have seen coming. I should have. You should have what been perfect, known everything." She shook her head. "That's not how life works, Caleb. Bad things happen, to good people, for no reason at all. The only choice we have is what we do after. I ran. You survived. There's a difference." He looked at her, really looked at her. This woman who had lost everything and rebuilt herself from the ashes. "How do you do it?" he asked. "How do you keep going after everything you've been through?" "The same way you do. One day at a time. One choice at a time." She held his gaze. "And eventually, you realize you're not just surviving anymore. You're living." The words hung between them. Caleb felt something shift inside him. Something that had been frozen for 8 years, slowly beginning to thaw. "Maggie," he said, "whatever happens tomorrow, nothing's going to happen tomorrow that we can't handle together. But if it does, Caleb." She reached across the space between them and took his hand. "Stop saying goodbye. I didn't marry you to lose you. You married me for the children. I married you because a man walked into a room full of people who laughed at him and he didn't flinch. He didn't beg. He just told the truth and waited for someone to believe him." Her fingers tightened around his. "I believed him. I still do." Caleb could not speak. His throat had closed around something too big for words. So instead he held her hand in the darkness and waited for dawn. They came at first light. 5 riders. Crane in the lead. His hired men spread out behind him. Caleb saw them from the window. He rose and took up his rifle. "Stay inside," he told Maggie. "Whatever happens, stay inside. Caleb, please." She hesitated. Then she nodded. Caleb walked out onto the porch. Crane pulled his horse to a stop 20 feet from the house. His smile was gone. In its place was something cold, something hungry. "You should have stayed down, Thornton." "I don't stay down. Never learned how." "Then I'll have to teach you." Crane gestured to his men. "Burn it." "Wait!" Caleb held up the papers he had taken from the safe. "You want these back? You come get them yourself." Crane's eyes narrowed. "You're bluffing." "Maybe. Maybe not." Caleb's voice was steady. "But I'm guessing you don't want to find out. These papers show everything. Every piece of land you stole. Every family you destroyed. Every deal you made with outlaws to clear people off their property. Nobody will believe you. The territorial marshal will, especially when he sees the receipts for the payments you made to the bandits who've been terrorizing this county." Caleb paused. "Including the ones who killed Sam and Hannah's parents." Crane's face went white. "Oh yeah," Caleb continued. "I found those too. Hidden in the back. Dates, amounts, names. You paid them to clear the roads, make people afraid, drive down land prices so you could swoop in and buy cheap. Those children's parents were in the way, like everyone else." Caleb's voice turned to ice. "How many families, Crane? How many people died so you could add another line to your ledger?" Crane's composure cracked, just for a second, but it was enough. "Kill him," he said. "Kill him now." The men raised their guns, and then a shot rang out from inside the house. One of Crane's men fell from his horse, clutching his leg. Maggie stood in the doorway, the shotgun smoking in her hands. "The next one goes higher," she said. Crane's men hesitated. They had not expected this. A woman, fighting back. In that moment of hesitation, hoofbeats thundered up the road. Tom Avery rode in hard, 6 men behind him. Deputies, armed, ready. "Nobody moves," Tom shouted. He pulled his horse between Caleb and Crane's men. "Victor Crane, you are under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and accessory to murder." Crane's face twisted with rage. "You can't do this. I own this county." "Not anymore." Tom nodded toward Caleb. "He's got the proof. Everything we need. He broke into my bank. He stole. He recovered evidence of criminal activity. That's different." Tom smiled grimly. "I've been waiting years for this, Crane. Years of watching you destroy good people. It ends today." Crane looked around, at his men surrounded, at Caleb still holding the papers, at Maggie still holding the shotgun. "This isn't over," he snarled. "Yeah." Caleb stepped forward. "It is." He handed the papers to Tom. The sheriff took them, looked at Crane. "Take him," he said to his deputies. They pulled Crane from his horse and bound his hands. The banker fought, cursed, threatened, but it made no difference. He was finished. As they led him away, Crane turned back one last time. "Those children," he spat. "They're not even yours. They're not even real family." Caleb looked at him, steady, certain. "You're wrong," he said. "They're more real than anything you've ever known." Crane was dragged away, still shouting. The yard fell silent. Sam burst out of the house and ran to Caleb. He threw his arms around him, holding on like he might never let go. Hannah followed more slowly. She stopped in front of Caleb and looked up at him. "Is it over?" she asked. "It's over. The bad man won't come back. He's going away for a long time. He can't hurt us anymore." Hannah nodded. Then she reached out and took Caleb's hand. "I was scared," she said quietly. "But I didn't run. I was brave." Caleb knelt down until he was at her level. "You were very brave," he said. "The bravest girl I know." Hannah's face broke into a small, fragile smile, the first real smile Caleb had ever seen from her. "Can I show you something?" she asked. "Always." She pulled her drawing book from behind her back, opened it to the last page. This drawing was different from all the others. It showed a house, a family standing in front of it, 4 figures holding hands. But this time, there were words beneath each figure. Papa, Mama, Sam, me, and above them all in careful letters, one word, home. Caleb's eyes burned. He pulled Hannah into his arms and held her. Felt Maggie's hand on his shoulder. Felt Sam press close against his side. His family. His home. For the first time in 8 years, Caleb Thornton wept. And he did not feel ashamed. The weeks that followed Crane's arrest moved slow and gentle like a river finding its way home after a flood. The territorial marshal came and went, took statements, collected evidence, thanked Caleb and Maggie for their courage in a formal voice that did not match the respect in his eyes. Victor Crane was transported to Austin to stand trial. The evidence was overwhelming. The ledgers, the receipts, the letters that connected him to every crime committed in the territory for the past decade. He would not be coming back. Tom Avery stopped by the ranch on a Sunday afternoon to deliver the news in person. "It's done," he said, standing on the porch with his hat in his hands. "Judge ruled this morning. Crane gets 25 years, no parole." Caleb nodded slowly. He had expected this outcome, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real in a way nothing else could. "And the land?" Maggie asked. "Yours, free and clear. The territorial office voided all of Crane's challenges." Tom smiled. "You're safe, Maggie. All of you." Sam whooped from inside the house. Hannah appeared in the doorway, her drawing book clutched against her chest, her eyes wide with hope. "Does that mean we can stay?" she asked. Her voice was still quiet, still careful, but it was there. Present. Real. "Yes, sweetheart," Maggie said. "It means we can stay." Hannah's face broke into a smile, the kind of smile that had been buried so deep inside her that seeing it now felt like watching a sunrise. She ran to Caleb and threw her arms around his waist. He lifted her up, held her close, and closed his eyes. "Thank you," he said to Tom over Hannah's shoulder. "Don't thank me. You did this. You took the risk. I just showed up with badges. You showed up when it mattered. That's more than most." Tom held his gaze for a long moment. Old debts finally settled. Old wounds finally healing. "Take care of them, Caleb," Tom said. "They deserve it." "I intend to." Tom mounted his horse and rode away. The family stood on the porch together, watching him disappear down the road. Maggie's hand found Caleb's. He held on tight. Summer began to fade. The brutal heat softened into something almost bearable. The land turned from brown to gold. The horses grew fat on the grass that finally returned after months of drought. Caleb added a room to the house, not a big room, just big enough for Sam to have his own space. The boy was growing fast, stretching toward manhood in ways that caught Caleb off guard sometimes. They worked on it together, cutting wood, fitting boards, learning the rhythm of building something with their own hands. "Can I ask you something?" Sam said one afternoon while they worked. "You can always ask." "That night, when you went to the bank," Sam drove a nail into place. "Were you scared?" Caleb considered the question carefully. "Yes," he said. "I was scared." "But you did it anyway." "I did." How do you do something when you know it might kill you?" Caleb set down his hammer. He looked at Sam, really looked at him. This boy who had seen too much and survived it all. "You think about what you're fighting for," Caleb said. "Not what you're fighting against. You think about the people waiting for you to come home. And you decide that they're worth any risk." Sam was quiet for a long moment. "I think about that sometimes," he said. "About what would have happened if you hadn't found us. If you hadn't stopped that day." "I try not to think about it." "Why not?" "Because some roads weren't meant to be traveled. We ended up here. That's what matters." Sam nodded slowly. Then he picked up his hammer and went back to work. But there was something different in his shoulders now. Something settled, like a question he had been carrying for months had finally been answered. That night after dinner, Hannah asked Maggie to teach her to read. The request came out of nowhere. One moment they were clearing plates, the next, Hannah was standing in front of Maggie, with her drawing book open to a page covered in letters she had copied from signs in town. "I want to learn," she said. "I want to write things, real things, not just draw them." Maggie's heart swelled until she thought it might burst. "Of course," she said. "We'll start tomorrow, every day after chores." "Promise." "I promise." Hannah smiled. That rare, precious smile that still felt like a gift every time it appeared. "Mama," she said. Maggie went still. Hannah had called her that once before in a whisper, almost by accident. But this was different. This was deliberate. Chosen. "Yes, sweetheart." "I'm glad you said yes when he asked for a wife. I'm glad it was you." Maggie knelt down and gathered Hannah into her arms. "I'm glad too," she whispered. "More than you'll ever know." Caleb watched from the doorway. He did not interrupt. Some moments were not meant to be shared. They were meant to be witnessed, remembered, held close like something precious. Maggie caught his eye over Hannah's shoulder. She smiled. He smiled back. And something that had been waiting for a long time finally clicked into place. The fall brought changes nobody expected. Doc Brennan rode out to the ranch one afternoon with news that spread through the territory like wildfire. The territorial governor was proposing a new law. a law that would allow orphan children to be adopted by families who had proven themselves capable of providing stable homes. "It's because of you," Doc said to Caleb and Maggie. "The judge wrote to the governor about your case, about what you did for those children, about what they've become since you took them in." "We didn't do it for recognition," Caleb said. "I know. That's why it matters." Doc leaned forward. "The governor wants to meet you, both of you, and the children. He wants to see what a real family looks like." Maggie and Caleb exchanged a glance. "We're not politicians," Maggie said. "You don't have to be. You just have to tell the truth." "What truth?" "The truth about what happens when somebody gives an orphan a chance. The truth about what kindness can build when you give it room to grow." Caleb thought about Sam, about the boy who had held a knife on him under a wagon and now helped him build rooms onto a house that was becoming a home. He thought about Hannah, about the girl who had not spoken for weeks and now asked to learn to read so she could write stories of her own. He thought about Maggie, about the woman who had married a stranger to save children she had never met and had become the heart of a family none of them had expected. "When does he want to meet us?" Caleb asked. "Next month, in Austin." "That's a long way to travel with children." "I know." Doc stood up. "But some things are worth the journey." He left them to decide. That night, after Sam and Hannah were asleep, Caleb and Maggie sat on the porch together. The stars were thick overhead. The night air carried the first hint of autumn coolness. "What do you think?" Caleb asked. "I think it's terrifying," Maggie said. "Standing in front of politicians, telling our story, letting them judge whether we're good enough." "We don't have to do it." "No, we don't." She was quiet for a moment. "But those other children, the ones still on trains heading east, the ones who don't have someone to fight for them." Her voice tightened. "What if our story could help them?" Caleb looked at her. This woman who had lost everything and found the courage to start again. "Then we go," he said. "Just like that. Just like that." Maggie leaned her head against his shoulder. "I never expected this," she said softly. "Any of this. When I came to Texas, I was running away. I thought I was done with family, done with hope, done with everything. What changed? You did. You asked for something impossible, and I said yes." She laughed quietly. "I still don't know why I said yes." "I do." "Tell me." "Because you saw something in those children, something worth fighting for, and you couldn't walk away from it." Caleb's voice deepened. "Because underneath all that Boston practicality, you've got a heart that doesn't know how to quit." Maggie lifted her head and looked at him. "That's the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me." "It's the truth." "I know. That's why it matters." They sat in silence for a long time, watching the stars wheel overhead. Then Maggie asked the question she asked every night. "Were you gentle today?" Caleb thought about Sam learning to build, about Hannah asking to read, about the slow, steady work of turning strangers into family. "I tried," he said. "I know you did." Maggie squeezed his hand. "I always know." The trip to Austin took 2 weeks. They traveled by wagon, stopping in small towns along the way. Sam helped drive. Hannah practiced her letters in the back, showing Maggie her progress every evening. Caleb watched them grow closer with every mile. The distance they had started with the careful wariness, the fear of getting too close only to lose it all again. All of it faded like morning mist. They arrived in Austin on a Tuesday afternoon. The city was bigger than anything Sam or Hannah had ever seen. Buildings taller than any tree. Streets crowded with people. The noise and movement of a world that had no idea about the quiet struggle of a family from the Texas hills. The governor's mansion was intimidating. White columns, manicured grounds, guards at every entrance. Sam's hand found Caleb's as they approached. "I'm nervous," he admitted. "Me too." "What if they don't like us?" "Then they don't like us, but we'll still be us. Nothing changes that." Sam nodded. His grip tightened. They walked inside together. The governor was not what Caleb expected. He was younger than the portrait suggested, more tired. The weight of governing showed in the lines around his eyes and the way his shoulders carried tension like a second skin. But when he looked at Sam and Hannah, his expression softened. "So you're the famous Thornton family," he said. "I've heard a lot about you." "We're just folks, sir," Caleb said. "Nothing famous about us." "I disagree." The governor gestured for them to sit. "You took in 2 children who had nothing. You fought a corrupt man who was used to winning. You built a family from pieces that nobody else wanted." He paused. "That sounds pretty remarkable to me." "We did what anybody would do," Maggie said. "No, you did what most people talk about doing but never actually accomplish." The governor leaned forward. "Mrs. Thornton, I want to ask you something. The day you agreed to marry a stranger to help children you'd never met, why did you do it?" Maggie glanced at Caleb, at Sam, at Hannah. "Because somebody asked the right question," she said. "What question? Will you be kind?" That's all I wanted to know. Not whether he could provide. Not whether he had money or status. Just whether he could be kind to 2 children who had lost everything. She paused. He said yes, and he meant it. The governor nodded slowly. "That's what I hoped you'd say." He turned to Sam. "And you, young man, what has it been like living with people who weren't your parents?" Sam was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. "At first I was scared. I kept waiting for something bad to happen, for them to get tired of us or decide we were too much trouble." He swallowed. "But they never did. Every day they just kept showing up, kept being patient, kept being—" He struggled for the word. "Gentle," Hannah said quietly. It was the first word she had spoken since entering the mansion. Everyone turned to look at her. "They were gentle," she continued. Her voice was small but steady. "Even when I couldn't talk. Even when Sam was angry. Even when everything was hard." She looked at Caleb and Maggie. They never stopped being gentle. The governor's eyes glistened. "Thank you, Hannah," he said. "That's exactly what I needed to hear." The meeting lasted another hour. Questions about the ranch, about their hopes for the children, about what they thought other families could learn from their experience. When it was over, the governor stood and shook Caleb's hand. "You've given me something valuable," he said. "Proof that the system can work, that kindness can triumph over circumstance." He paused. "The new law will pass. I'll make sure of it. And when it does, I want you to know that it started here, with your family, with what you built." Caleb did not know what to say, so he just nodded, and hoped that was enough. They returned to Copper Creek as the first frost touched the hills. The ranch was waiting for them. Unchanged. Solid. Home. Sam jumped down from the wagon and ran to check on the horses. Hannah followed more slowly, clutching her letters practice book, already planning what she would write next. Caleb helped Maggie down from the seat. "We did it," she said. "We did. It doesn't feel real. It will. Eventually." She looked around at the land they had fought so hard to keep. At the house they had filled with laughter and tears and everything in between. "Caleb," she said. "Yeah, I love you." The words hung in the air between them. Neither of them had said it before. Not out loud, not directly. Caleb's throat tightened. "I love you too," he said. "I think I have for a while." Maggie smiled, that rare smile that still surprised him every time he saw it. "Then say it again." "I love you." "Again." "Maggie, I love you." She laughed and pulled him close. They stood there together, holding on while their children explored the home that had become theirs. Years passed. Sam grew tall and strong. He learned the horses the way Caleb had. learned the land, learned the quiet patience required to build something that lasted. At 18, he started working his own section of property running cattle alongside the horse operation. Hannah found her voice in more ways than one. The girl who had not spoken for weeks became the young woman who could not stop writing. Stories, letters, poems. She filled book after book with words, then started submitting them to newspapers in Austin. By 20, she had published her first collection. Caleb's hair went gray at the temples. His hands, already rough, grew rougher still. But his eyes kept that gentle blue that Maggie had noticed the very first day. Maggie's auburn hair gained silver streaks. Her laugh lines deepened. But her voice stayed steady, and every night she still asked the same question. "Were you gentle today?" And every night, Caleb gave the same answer. "I tried." The town of Copper Creek never forgot the summer that changed everything. They told the story in the saloon where it had started, about the man who walked in and asked for a wife, about the laughter that had filled the room, about the woman who stood up and asked one question that silenced them all. New families heard it, passed it on to their children, made it part of the territory's history, like the rivers and the hills and the endless Texas sky. And if you asked any of them what the story was really about, they would all say the same thing. It was not about a ranch. It was not about a trial. It was not about fighting a corrupt banker or saving children from an orphan train. It was about one simple truth that most people forget in the business of living. Kindness matters. Not the grand gestures, not the heroic moments, the small things, the daily choices, the decision to be gentle, even when gentleness cost you something. Caleb Thornton understood that now. He had learned it the hard way through loss and guilt and 8 years of isolation. But he had learned it. And every morning when he woke up beside Maggie, when he heard Sam whistling in the barn and Hannah's pen scratching across paper, he gave thanks for the second chance he had almost been too scared to take. For the children who taught him how to be a father. For the woman who taught him how to love again. For the family that had found each other in the wreckage of everything they had lost. On his last morning, many years later, Caleb sat on the porch, watching the sun rise over the hills. Maggie sat beside him, her hand in his. Both of them gray and weathered, and more content than they had ever imagined being. Sam was inside talking with Hannah about her latest book. Their voices carried through the open window, warm and familiar. "Caleb," Maggie said softly. "Yeah. Were you gentle all those years?" He thought about it. Really thought about it. "I tried," he said. "Every single day. I tried." Maggie squeezed his hand. "That was enough," she said. "It was always enough." The sun climbed higher. The day began, and somewhere in the distance, a young rider approached the ranch asking for work, asking for a chance. Asking for exactly what Caleb had once asked for in a crowded saloon full of people who had laughed at him. A fresh start. A second chance. A place to belong. Caleb stood up slowly, his bones aching, but his heart full. "Come on," he said to Maggie. "Let's go see what he needs." They walked toward the gate together. Because that was what family did. They showed up, they stayed, and they never stopped trying to be gentle with the broken and the lost. Not because it was easy, but because it mattered. And in the end, that was all any of them could do. Try. Every single day, try.